The next step in the process is your resume. Here's a tip. Most employers eliminate about 75% of their candidates when they're separating yes to no piles based on a quick look at somebody's resume. Resumes are evaluated on opinions. There's no hard and fast rules for administrators when we screen resumes. It's important that you collaborate with others, have them take a look at it, and give you honest feedback about that resume. It should be attractive. What I mean by that, a balance between space and words. It should be easy to read and have no roadblocks for understanding. It should be informative. Your student teaching is of great interest to the hiring committee. We know if you're a new teacher, we want to know about your student teaching. Have a reference, and this is an important piece, have a reference from an administrator, not just cooperating teachers or teachers. That might be hard to come by or maybe feel a little awkward for a student teacher to ask an administrator, but I encourage you to get someone who works with hiring teachers in your classroom, take a look, and be a reference for you. That has a lot of power. A lot of times we get questions about 1 page or 2 pages for a resume. It really doesn't matter that much. If you have enough information to fill 2 with good facts and information, use 2. If you can squeeze it into 1, do so. I talked about space and words. Be mindful of margins and space. Use reverse chronological order when you're putting your experiences in the resume. Use bolding and underlining for emphasis and clarity. Doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to be clear. When I'm screening applicants, the resume is my go-to sheet to begin with and to finish the process. It has great information. It's the most important tool for me. I'm only speaking for me, but it's a really important tool for me, so I want you to take your time with it. I want you to put energy into it and be thoughtful with it. I encourage you to adjust your resume depending on the job you're applying for. It might be a different little skill set or set of tools that you have for one school or another. Here's some steps to putting together your resume. They include collect all the information. That means make sure you get your license information, make sure you get your graduation date, make sure all that information that you're going to put at the top in the heading is accurate and up to date. The heading section is just your information. It needs to be easy to read. It needs to include your cell phone and email address. Make sure you have a professional email address because not having one can be a problem for some interview teams. Next is the objective section. This is optional. I like a 1 or 2 sentence narrative that tells me about the applicant's goals and what they're looking for. Some folks have a hard time writing that. I encourage you to at least play with it and see if that's something that makes your resume better. Next is the education section. Some folks often ask, should I include my GPA? And what I respond with, if it's impressive, yes. If you don't include your GPA, it's not a negative. If it's not there, people won't wonder what it is. They can always look it up in your transcripts if they'd like. It's very important to include licensure information. That's one of those yes pile, no piles things that administrators oftentimes don't have a choice. If you're not licensed for the position, they're not going to go any further. Make sure we know that you're licensed for the position. The next section you'll probably write about is the experience section. Again, this should be in reverse chronological order with your most recent experiences first. And I encourage you to connect what you've done to being a teacher. Even if it's not a position in education or an educational experience, try to describe it as if it were. For example, I have a soft spot when I hire for folks who've worked in food service. I worked in food service all the way through high school and college, and working in food service includes teamwork, reliability, collaborative skills, stress, prioritizing, and thinking on your feet, just like being a classroom teacher. So take those experiences that you have from your past, connect the dots between them, those experiences, and the teaching position. Next is the interests section. And I encourage you to include a section like this because folks want to work with well-rounded people who have other interests and other things outside the school day that they enjoy. I would encourage you to be careful with this, though. Try not to include any interests that might not resonate with hiring committees. Let's say you're a home brewer. That might turn off some people, so be careful about that. And like I said, just make those decisions based on who you are and how you're going to present yourself. I encourage you to include references on your resume. A few things about references. The number of references is really up to you, but if you give us more than 3, it's going to be hard to make all those phone calls and connect people. And I think you need to have at least a couple. I encourage you to have a reference from somebody who's responsible for evaluating and hiring teachers, an administrator. Your cooperating teacher your Bethel student teaching supervisor, those are fantastic choices. Colleagues that you worked with, students that you've worked with, parents that you've worked with during your student teaching, all fantastic choices. But it's important, again, to have an administrator as one of your references, because when I call in the summertime, that's who I'm going to be able to get a hold of, and I want to talk to that person because they had a chance to see you in the classroom. I've also hired plenty of folks late in the summertime, sometimes while on vacation, so I encourage you to get those cell phone numbers as part of the references that you put on your resume. I sometimes need to get hold of people quickly and get that hiring done, and those cell numbers really help me out.